I'm Michio Kaku, and what I'm about to tell you is not science fiction. It's not rumor. It's not a hoax on social media. It's data, verified, cross-checked, and quietly analyzed inside NASA, the European Space Agency, and a handful of defense observatories around the world. What we are facing right now is the single most unsettling discovery since the dawn of the space age. NASA's worst nightmare has come true. For decades, every contingency model in astrophysics has included the usual suspects: asteroid impact, solar flare, gamma burst, orbital debris, even rogue artificial intelligence scenarios. But no one, not even in the black budget simulations, wanted to dwell on the possibility that we might be under observation by something far beyond our own capability to comprehend. And now, the evidence points exactly there. It began quietly, almost unnoticed, in the flood of daily telemetry that astronomers process. Anomalous data came from the Pan-STARRS array, the Arecibo reconstruction network, and finally the deep space spectrometers at Cerro Paranal. They all saw the same object, designated 3I/ATLAS, cutting across our solar system on an inbound trajectory that didn't fit gravitational models. Its path wasn't ballistic, it was controlled. For months it was described publicly as an interstellar interloper, perhaps like Oumuamua, a piece of rock, maybe a remnant of some shattered world. But inside the secure channels, the tone was different. 3I/ATLAS wasn't drifting, it was surveying. The first sign was in the radio spectrum. Normally, natural bodies emit broadband noise, chaotic, random, unstructured. But the emissions from 3I/ATLAS were tight-beamed, highly directional, and modulated. The pattern showed bursts focused at specific angular coordinates, and Earth was one of them. These weren't random sweeps. They were targeted interrogations. The second anomaly came from its rotational pattern. Every 29 hours, 3I/ATLAS would adjust its orientation precisely when Earth crossed a favorable alignment angle. It was as if a sensor platform were tilting its lens to optimize resolution. Nothing about it matched a natural tumbling motion. Then came the third, and most chilling, discovery. The frequency variations of its outgoing signals mirrored our own electromagnetic activity. Our radio, television, radar, satellite transmissions, they were being sampled, echoed, reflected back with spectral fingerprints that suggested not mimicry, but analysis, as if it were dissecting the symphony of our civilization's noise. Inside NASA, I spoke to analysts who looked pale even through video conference screens. "We've known for weeks," one said. "It's not passing through, doctor. It's studying us." That's when it hit me. This is the nightmare scenario we've all discussed in quiet corners of theoretical physics departments. The loss of agency, the moment we realize we are not the observers of the cosmos, but the observed. For the first time in our scientific history, humanity isn't asking, "Are we alone?" We're asking, "Who's watching us and why?" Let me be clear. This isn't about aliens descending from the sky or saucers over Washington. This is about data, systematic, deliberate, unambiguous observation. When you look at the telemetry logs, it's impossible to dismiss the pattern. Every major metropolitan region has been swept. Infrared satellites show slight fluctuations matching its scanning cycles. Whenever our orbital infrastructure, communication satellites, GPS constellations, or the International Space Station, passes through its line of sight, its sensor activity spikes. Someone or something is building a comprehensive map of human civilization. I've reviewed the Defense Intelligence briefings. They read like the preface of a history-changing event. The object's beamed emissions align with our radar bands. Its photometric signals shift precisely when directed at industrialized zones. It knows where our power grids are, our cities, our orbital assets. And that means it knows our level of advancement. Why would an interstellar probe focus so much attention on a young, noisy species orbiting a small yellow star? There are only a few possibilities: scientific curiosity, threat assessment, cataloging for a larger database, or perhaps reconnaissance before contact. We don't know which. And that uncertainty is paralyzing. Imagine an insect realizing it's being studied by a biologist. The insect doesn't know if the magnifying glass means curiosity or capture. It just knows it's being watched. That's where humanity stands now. In the internal memos, NASA calls this loss of autonomy condition. It means that although no threat has been detected, humanity no longer controls the timeline of contact. We cannot initiate communication on equal terms. We don't decide when interaction occurs or if it occurs. The decision belongs entirely to whoever or whatever operates 3I/ATLAS. For a civilization that has prided itself on exploration, that reversal is profound. We've always been the seekers. We built telescopes to peer into the universe, sent probes to Mars, to Jupiter, to the edge of the solar system to find. But now we are the ones being found. And perhaps what unsettles us most is not that we're being watched, but that the watcher has been here for a while. By analyzing trajectory reconstructions, scientists concluded that 3I/ATLAS was already inside our detection boundary months before we realized it. It may have been collecting data from afar for years, studying our radio leakage, decoding our languages, even analyzing our entertainment broadcasts. Think about that. Every sitcom, every news broadcast, every war transmission, all echoing into space, could have been data points in someone else's database. We used to joke that our first message to the cosmos might be an episode of a late-night show. Now that joke feels more like prophecy. When I was a graduate student, we imagined first contact as a dialogue, messages exchanged across centuries of light years, a slow, deliberate handshake between minds. What we face instead is asymmetry. One side already knows far more than the other. They've studied us while we've barely noticed them. That imbalance is the true terror, not invasion, not destruction, but irrelevance. Inside NASA's secure briefings, one term appears repeatedly: systematic civilization profiling. It means that 3I/ATLAS has likely cataloged our planetary features, population distribution, industrial output, even our climate patterns through heat signatures. With infrared mapping, it could estimate our agricultural zones, military facilities, and spacefaring capacity. It knows us better than we know ourselves from orbit. The psychological impact is spreading quietly among scientists. Some talk of existential humility, others quiet dread. Because if 3I/ATLAS represents an advanced intelligence, it means they achieve something we still consider impossible: interstellar autonomy. That alone implies a mastery of physics that dwarfs our understanding. Energy generation, propulsion, communication, all orders of magnitude beyond us. The Chinese Space Agency's limited data release only deepens the mystery. Their deep space probe, Tianwen-X, captured high-resolution images when it passed within a few million kilometers. According to internal leaks, they saw what appeared to be an array of sensor apertures, distinctly oriented toward Earth. They confirmed the observation and then went silent. I can't blame them. Confirmation that we are being systematically studied by an intelligence beyond comprehension isn't something any government knows how to announce. There is no press release template for "we are the lab rats of the galaxy." Still, I urge caution and perspective. The fact that 3I/ATLAS observes but does not interfere may be our most important clue. If the purpose were harm, action would have followed detection. Instead, it watches, measures, learns. That behavior aligns more with curiosity than hostility. Advanced civilizations capable of interstellar travel likely had to outgrow aggression. They survived their technological adolescence by mastering cooperation. Perhaps what's out there isn't a conqueror, but a scientist. That idea doesn't erase the fear, but it reframes it. Because maybe, just maybe, this isn't a prelude to invasion. It's a test of character. Maybe they're asking, how does this young civilization respond when stripped of control? Do we panic, or do we rise, cooperate, show curiosity instead of fear? In 67 days, 3I/ATLAS will reach its closest approach to Earth. Every telescope, every observatory, every amateur astronomer will be watching. But remember, it will be watching back. Two intelligences, separated by unimaginable distance in capability, locked in mutual observation. For the first time in history, the universe looks back, and the reflection is us. 3 days ago, the situation escalated. The complete multispectrum dataset from 5 observatories across 3 continents confirmed what we feared. 3I/ATLAS isn't just passing through. It's executing a systematic, comprehensive scan of our planet. Every continent, every ocean, every orbiting satellite, it's all being observed with precision we can hardly grasp. I'm Michio Kaku, and I've seen the classified images. What they reveal is breathtaking and unnerving at the same time. As Earth rotates, 3I/ATLAS synchronizes its sensors, locking on to our brightest energy signatures. City lights, industrial heat, even radar pings bouncing off aircraft, it tracks them all. You can actually watch the beam pattern crawl across the night side of Earth like a digital fingerprint being taken from an entire species. This isn't coincidence, this is targeting. And the consistency of those patterns tells us something profound. 3I/ATLAS is prioritizing technological activity. Every pass over populated regions triggers the same frequency shift. It's filtering our emissions, separating human-made signals from natural background noise. It's learning what civilization looks like in data form. Inside NASA, analysts started calling it the Great Census. If the object's builders wanted to know how intelligent life organizes itself, this is exactly how they do it. Observe from afar, collect data silently, avoid interference. For them, we're an open book written in radio waves and infrared light. I've studied the transmissions. The modulation patterns change every time 3I/ATLAS aligns with Earth's orbital satellites. It's like it's cataloging our entire orbital infrastructure, communication arrays, GPS constellations, meteorological satellites, even classified reconnaissance craft. We know this because spikes in its sensor telemetry correspond precisely with satellite transits through its field of view. They know what we have in orbit, what frequencies we use, even how our systems interact. That's not random curiosity, that's strategic awareness. And yet there's still no attempt at contact, no messages, no recognizable linguistic structure, just observation, constant, patient, deliberate. The silence is almost louder than any signal we could hope for. I was in a secure teleconference when one of NASA's senior communication engineers said something that silenced the room. He said, "We always imagined first contact would begin with a greeting. What if it begins with surveillance?" That question has been haunting me ever since. Across the world, governments are struggling with the same dilemma. How do you prepare humanity for the fact that we're being monitored by an intelligence that doesn't need our permission, that may not even see us as equals? The United Nations has quietly convened an emergency committee on extraterrestrial observation events. Publicly, they're discussing it as a hypothetical framework. Privately, they're drafting contingency protocols in case 3I/ATLAS makes direct contact, or worse, leaves something behind. The Pentagon and European Space Command are analyzing military implications. Could this be reconnaissance before potential interaction? Could data about our defense networks, our radar installations, our missile tracking systems be part of what's being collected? On paper, that possibility exists. But what stands out most is restraint. There's no aggression, no interference, no electromagnetic disruption. The probe observes, but it doesn't provoke. If this were hostile, we'd know by now. Still, the imbalance is staggering. 3I/ATLAS can observe us continuously, while we can only observe it during favorable windows. It's as though we're studying a flash of lightning while it's studying the entire storm. The asymmetry of information is total. The psychological weight of that realization is enormous. Humanity's self-image, our sense of being explorers, pioneers, the ones charting the unknown, has inverted overnight. We're the ones under the microscope. The watchers have become the watched. Religious leaders, philosophers, and ethicists are already wrestling with what this means. Are we being judged, evaluated, tested? Some call it a mirror moment for civilization, forcing us to confront what we've become under the gaze of something far wiser. In a closed session yesterday, a senior scientist at ESA made a comment that struck me deeply. She said, "For the first time, we're not the main characters of our own story." That might be the truest sentence spoken in years. There's another layer to this, the timeline. 3, I/ATLAS is leaving soon, heading back toward interstellar space, which means this observation has an end date, January 15th, closest approach. After that, it accelerates outward, back toward the stars. The question keeping everyone awake at night is simple. What happens to the data? If 3 I/ATLAS transmits it, to whom does it go? If it stores it, will it carry a record of our civilization across light years? Are we being cataloged for future contact, or are we just another entry in an endless cosmic archive? Nobody knows. NASA's internal projections show that at its current trajectory, the probe will have completed full spectrum mapping of our planet by the end of next month. Its behavior is so consistent that one analyst joked, it's like a scientist ticking every box before submitting a report. Only this report isn't going to human reviewers. I've often said that advanced civilizations probably evolve beyond aggression because they must. No species survives long enough to travel between stars if it doesn't learn restraint. That's why I believe what we're witnessing now isn't invasion, it's evaluation. A long, quiet look before a decision. But make no mistake, this isn't comfort, it's vulnerability. We can't control what's happening, can't negotiate the terms of our observation. We can only hope that whatever intelligence is behind 3 I/ATLAS sees something in us worth preserving. In Beijing, Moscow, and Washington, there are rumors of internal arguments about how much to disclose to the public. Full transparency risks panic. Too much secrecy fuels paranoia. NASA's approach is cautious release. Acknowledge the object, present data gradually, keep the narrative scientific. But even within that framework, the truth is impossible to hide for long. The amateur astronomy community has seen the same anomalies. The story is leaking in fragments across forums, encrypted message boards, and private research networks. The tension between truth and stability has never been sharper. How do you tell 8 billion people that we're being watched without shattering the fragile trust that holds our global systems together? I've asked myself what I would say if given a global broadcast. Maybe something like this: we are not alone, we are not threatened, but we are being seen. And maybe that's enough for now. The data coming from ground-based arrays tonight shows a subtle but unmistakable pattern. 3 I/ATLAS is now focusing on the polar regions. That could mean it's studying our magnetic field or simply completing its mapping grid. Either way, the behavior fits the same profile: thorough, methodical, deliberate, like a researcher finishing the final pages of a long experiment. And soon that experiment ends. In 67 days, as it passes closest to Earth, every eye on this planet will turn upward. But I wonder what happens afterward. Do we celebrate, relieved that it's gone? Or do we feel emptiness, knowing that somewhere out there, far beyond the edge of our sun's reach, an intelligence now knows who we are, what we build, what we dream? The truth is, we've spent centuries wondering if anyone would notice us. Now that someone has, we realize the one thing scarier than not being seen is being seen completely. 67 days. That's all that remains before 3 I/ATLAS reaches its closest point to Earth. Inside NASA's mission control, the atmosphere feels like the final countdown of an experiment humanity never volunteered for. We watch, we record, we calculate, but all of us know the truth. They're watching back with far greater clarity than we could ever achieve. I'm Michio Kaku, and every time I look at the real-time telemetry, I'm struck by the same realization. This is not a movie. There's no director, no script we can rewrite. Humanity is standing on the edge of an encounter we cannot predict, control, or delay. The object has now completed multiple full rotations of observation, covering the entire surface of the planet. Its scan pattern reveals astonishing precision. Every major city, every industrial region, every ocean current, every orbiting satellite, mapped, analyzed, stored. It has built a digital portrait of Earth layer by layer, frequency by frequency. We can see its behavior shifting slightly, as though the final phase of data collection is underway. And then something unexpected happened. The radio emissions changed. The narrowband beacons that once matched our communication frequencies began to fade, replaced by a lower rhythmic pulse, a repeating signal that cycles every 21 minutes. The pattern isn't random, it's mathematical, structured, like an encryption handshake waiting for a response. NASA's Deep Space Network has tried replying, sending modulated carrier tones, binary primes, even encoded sequences representing hydrogen, carbon, oxygen, the building blocks of life, but there's no acknowledgement. 3I/ATLAS doesn't answer. It listens, then continues its steady pulse as if marking time. Maybe it's not talking to us at all. Maybe it's transmitting to someone else. Or maybe it's recording, waiting to carry this data back to whoever sent it. That uncertainty sits like a stone in the heart of every scientist involved. We are participants in an interaction we can't define. Governments are now in quiet coordination. The United States, China, and the European Union have established what they're calling the Atlas Working Group. Their goal is simple: manage the observation period without triggering global panic. But beneath the diplomatic language lies an uncomfortable reality. No one knows what comes after January 15th. Religious leaders speak of revelation, philosophers of humility, generals of caution. But the truth is simpler. Humanity has never had to think of itself as the observed species. It challenges every assumption we've ever made about power, discovery, and destiny. As the probe's brightness increases in the night sky, ordinary people have started gathering in parks and rooftops to watch it pass. Some call it the silent eye. Some call it the mirror star. Children wave at it. Poets write about it. Even amid the fear, there's wonder, a feeling that maybe, just maybe, we're part of something larger than we ever imagined. Inside NASA, the data team has begun what they call mirror mapping, turning the probe's scans back on itself, analyzing its reflections, trying to see the observer through the observation. The results are partial, but astonishing. They show a symmetrical reflective structure, an array of sensor apertures, perhaps kilometers across, composed of material that bends light and radiation in ways we barely understand. It's not a ship in the traditional sense. It's more like a floating eye of glass and metal, powered by energies beyond fusion, beyond anything we can replicate. And yet, despite its unimaginable complexity, it remains passive. No weapon signatures, no interference, just observation. That restraint may be the single most hopeful sign we have. If a civilization can cross the stars and still choose patience over power, maybe there's something deeply intelligent and perhaps compassionate behind its silence. Still, I can't shake the thought that everything we do now is part of the test. How we react, how we treat each other, what we choose to become under the gaze of something far greater, those choices may define what happens next. Maybe they're not just studying our technology. Maybe they're studying our behavior, our morality, our unity. In the halls of NASA, someone taped a handwritten note to the mission board. It reads, "Be worth observing." It's simple, but it says everything. On the final night before closest approach, the object will pass just beyond the orbit of the moon. Every telescope on Earth will be locked on it. Millions will watch the live stream, waiting for something, anything, to happen. Maybe it will send a signal. Maybe it will depart in silence. Maybe we'll never know. But here's what I believe. Observation itself is an act of connection. The fact that 3I/ATLAS hasn't destroyed, interfered, or hidden means there's purpose in its patience. If it truly wanted to remain unseen, it could. Instead, it allowed us to notice. That might be its way of saying, you're ready to know you're not alone. And if that's true, then this isn't a nightmare anymore. It's an awakening. When I look up at that quiet point of light drifting beyond the stars, I don't see fear. I see a mirror held up to our species. We're being asked the oldest question in the universe, not who are they, but who are we? We can't control their next move. We can't demand answers, but we can choose how we face the unknown, with panic or with purpose, with arrogance or with awe. So when January 15th arrives and the world lifts its eyes to that silent messenger, I hope we stand together, not as frightened inhabitants of one planet, but as a civilization aware of its place in a larger story. Maybe they'll judge us by what we build, by what we destroy, or by how we love each other under the same stars. Maybe they'll see that even in our chaos, there's beauty, that even in our imperfection, there's hope. 3I/ATLAS came uninvited. It watched, it learned, it left. But in doing so, it forced us to see ourselves through the eyes of the universe. And maybe that was the message all along.